Okay, Steve G. This is your A9S computer. The pre-repair inspection process. Overall, don't see any burnt components. Everything looks pretty good on the board, which is pretty typical. It has still got the peanut butter style coating on the J3 port, which means this thing's never had a chip installed in it before. It has the original capacitors in it, which are these three teal blue pieces you see here. And so this thing has never been repaired. She is a virgin. And overall, they look really good. This capacitor here seems perfect. This one here seems perfect. But this one here is a little less than perfect. It's in the early stages of leaking. Hasn't done any damage yet, which is great. Let me see if I can zoom in on this a little bit for you and you can see what I'm looking at. There is some signs of discoloration. See if I can capture that for you. Some signs of discoloration and leaking on the two legs. I don't know if you can see that, but instead of just looking pure silver, there's some kind of yellowy looking stuff on there. And then when we look at the back side of that one, there is some kind of brown looking stuff over there as well. Apologize for the shaky camera. I don't know if you can see that, but just a little bit. It's in the really early stages of leaking. It hasn't done any damage to the board underneath. So all these fine little traces all look perfect and have not been melted or dissolved or anything like that. Sometimes when they leak all over those traces, and it's like an acid that leaks out, so it slowly over time burns through these traces. What you're seeing there on the green board, these little traces, they're copper traces, but you're not seeing the bare copper. They're coated with something so that the copper doesn't corrode. But when you have the leaking fluid in them, it eats through that and generally corrodes everything anywhere near the capacitor. But there's just no signs of corrosion or eaten traces anywhere around it, which makes this the best computer I have seen in a long time. Most of them just simply aren't that good. This is a great candidate for replacing the capacitors now, because they're in the very earliest stages of leaking. And if I had to guess, I would say this computer probably still runs great. If anything, this one here tends to affect mass airflow readings. So if anything, you might have some mass air or air-fuel ratio errors, but I would be surprised this early on in the leaking process if you even have that. So now testing it on the bench. Let's kill that light. This is power, this is the check engine light, and this is the fuel pump. Fuel pump should run for 1 second when we turn it on. And it does. Check engine light comes on, and you've got 5 volts on the regulator. That's all perfect. When we throw it in code pulling mode, you're going to see it freak out here for a second. There's the freak out. And then it'll start blinking a 2-digit trouble code at you. And there it goes. That's a code 51, and a bunch more will follow, but the important thing here is that we see this thing thinking clearly. It's got the 5 volts, it's running the fuel pump for 1 second, it's blinking trouble codes, so this computer is alive and well and functional. How well it functions, I can't say, but I can say to you that this is a perfect opportunity to replace these capacitors because we've caught them in the very earliest stages of leaking, and this ought to be a great candidate for that repair with no additional repair work necessary, just the replacement of the capacitors with some nice high quality Japanese original replacements, and you should be good to go, my friend. Great candidate, great core for rebuilding here.